Okay, so we are back again. Something a bit different this time. This is an FX Gladiator Mark II. Now, we're going to have to cut a few bits from this review simply because we're running on a bit of a time constraint at the moment. This is actually a customer's gun, so obviously we want to get the rifle back to him as fast as we can. We say back to him because sadly the rifle has already, not already, but the rifle had gone wrong. It's misbehaved a bit, but thankfully we managed to send it off to Jeff at Sub 12 Airgunners. They've got their own YouTube channel on here. Definitely subscribe. We'll put a link in the description down below. They are wizards when it comes to really getting the most performance out of a gun. And if you ever wondered what makes your gun tick, have a look at their channel. They strip everything that they get, and sometimes it's pretty amazing what they can do and what they can get out of a gun. So definitely, number one, a massive thank you to Jeff, and number two, get yourself over there and give them a watch. They're 100% worth it, trust me. But we have the Gladiator in front of us. Now, as we said, this is going to be a rapid fire review because it is a customer's gun. We are working a little bit with a time constraint at the moment, and we do want to get the rifle back to him as soon as we can. So we are going to have to cut a few little bits out, but rest assured, it's still going to, hopefully we'll get all the important bits in, and you'll get a good idea as to at least what I think of the gun. Which could be colourful, because I have an experience with this, not just this gun, but these rifles in particular anyway. So, let's move on with the review and see just what you get for your money. Let's move in to features. Okay, so features, what do you get with your Gladiator? As always, we start at the rear of the gun. You can see there's an adjustable recoil pad back there. Slightly further along, you can see the cheek piece, which is also adjustable and can be slid forwards and backwards for a better or shorter length of pull, depending on how you want it. And that's also, as you can see, wrapped around the bottle here, which is mated to a cylinder on the front end. In conjunction with the regulator, apparently will give you 500 shots per fill in sub 12 feet-pounds. We will not be testing that today, sadly. I do not have enough time left on this earth to sit behind a chronograph and get that done, I'm afraid. We'll see if we get time to put a few shots through it, but I highly doubt we'll be doing the full 500. No, it'll be similar to watching paint dry, I'm afraid. As we come further down, you can see we have got some striping going on in the grip there to give you a little bit of extra traction. And we do have a match type 2-stage trigger. As we come up, you can't see it because I put a piece of wood in the way just to stop you. There's a side lever on that side, and as we come back through, you can see the power adjuster next to the breech area here. The rifle does come with a multi-shot magazine, and we'll have a look a little bit later on to see just how that works. This rifle does come with a smooth twist barrel, which we'll see just what that's like a bit later. Some love them, some not quite so much. We'll see how this one does on here. And the shroud of the rifle is also baffled, I believe, as it is whisper quiet, genuinely whisper quiet. So that's pretty much it for features of the FX Gladiator. Let's get that magazine out now, see how that's loaded, and then finally put the gun to the shoulder and see what we think. Okay, so loading your FX mag. Let's see how this is done. Now sadly, this is where the rifle already, quite stiff, already, there we go, takes a bit of a hit. So, to load the mag, got to wind the top disc around like so. Apologies if I'm fluffing it a bit, obviously I'm looking through a camera while I'm trying to do this. And this is where things do get a bit messy. So you've got a rubber toggle that we've spun around, very similar to like your Chrono mags and things like that. And you hold that in place by putting pressure on it with your finger and thumb. As you turn the mag around, you've got to load the first pellet skirt first into the recess at the back here. The problem that you've got, if you can see that, can you see the way that the rotor, one of the teeth in the rotors inside the mag, isn't quite fully clearing the hole there? And it's not an issue only relegated to this mag. A lot of the FXs have iffy mags, to put it gently. Now for this, it makes things very fiddly. In fact, doing it through the camera, looking through there, can you see the way the pellet doesn't really want to go in? You've got to really fumble it, to be fair. Hold on. I promise you I'm not doing this for the sake of it. So you can see the rotor there. Maybe if I squeeze it a little tighter. I want to be careful because I don't want to bust the mag. Can you see the way it's... There we go. Finally then it drops in. And that, like the Chrono mag, will lock that toggle in place so you can load the rest of the pellets straight through the top. So the magazine is possibly not the worst that I've ever used, but it's really not a good one, I'll put it that way. And I can see now, oops, sorry, I just punched you in the face. I can see now why people out there quite like to buy the massive magazines for the FXs, and it's probably so as you don't have to load that first pellet quite so often. But yeah, that's basically how you load the mag with this thing. So fiddly, Not quite as, I know I'm going to get demonized for this by the, not fanboys, but those that like their FXs. If it was more like a simple, like a Crowl mag, I'd be happier. I'll put it that way. But yeah, not a bad mag though. Other than that, made very, very well. But that's it for loading the mag. Let's move on now to handling. Let's put the thing in the shoulder and see what we think. Okay, so handling. What do we think of the FX T12? Not T12. Why do I keep saying that? Gladiator. It's not. It doesn't even look close to resembling a T12, does it? Come on, Dan, get it together. Right, I don't like it. I'll explain why. I'm sure there's people that are big fans of this gun, how they handle and all that. I really, really, really don't like it. I'm sorry, Jake, I did tell you that when you picked it up and had a look at it from us before you put your money down, but ugh. Right, where do I start? Number one, when you're shouldering the thing, I mean, it's, to be fair, to give it credit, it's got that big scope on there, and it's actually not as heavy as what you might expect it to be. I mean, it's a ginormous gun, and it feels like a ginormous gun when you're shouldering it. But at the same time, it does behave itself quite well. The main problem that we've got is that if I go to aim and look down the scope of the rifle in my normal comfortable position, like this, I can't see anything. It's black. And the reason for that is because FX have decided to put on the single most awkward, horrible cheek piece on the planet. So even with, before people back there say, we'll just put raised mounts on it. Yeah, excuse me. What do you think these are? Yeah, it's just so uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong, it does feel quite nice in other places. I've got big hands, so I will complain about this little bit here. It does dig in just a tiny little bit. You probably won't see it on camera, but you can see the little line in there. That could have been maybe slightly better thought out. I mean, maybe even, and you can't do it because that gauge there, but maybe smoothen that off a bit or what have you. It's just horrid. I wish I had a scope cam somehow mounted to my face so you could see what I'm looking at down here now. If I bring that up and squeeze my cheek onto this cheek piece where I can barely speak, I can just about see through it. Granted, I have a large head, as I'm sure you've come to the conclusion of at this moment in time, but that's ridiculous. No, it's sacrifices they've made for, let's be honest, I highly doubt sub 12 is their main concern, which is what most of us are stuck with here. You make sacrifices when you go for massive shot counts. The Crowl MP02 and the Reximex Myth, they've got the huge bottles on the back, but I will say this, and I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but it's the God's honest truth, at least in my opinion. They do it better. I'm not going to tell you they're wonderful, beautiful little guns to shoulder, because they're not. They're bottle guns at the end of the day on the back. They're never going to be the same as shouldering like a Pretensis or Puncher Artemis M16, which practically cuddle you when you shoulder them. They just fit. It's hard work to look through the scope. When it's hard work to look through the scope, I can't recommend it, can I? At least where handling's concerned. But basically, they put the big bottle on the back for guys abroad that are doing 50, 60, 70, 80 feet-pounds, which I've got no doubt this would do in 2.2 or 2.5, what have you. But you need lots of air to make that shot count up with them. And that's where these come into play. And it just doesn't work, at least not for me. But other than that, it does redeem some points, because I will say it's got possibly the smoothest cocking action and the most beautiful trigger that I've ever shot. Have a look at this. So, we'll cock it. That is just butter. I think there might be a little bit of play in the lever, but it's nothing worth noting, to be fair at all. Whack that safety off, just like so, same position as the Crowl safeties. And that trigger, hopefully you can see that, is just, I can't see, I don't even know why I'm proper aiming, to be fair, I'll put it like that. So that's second, see it bouncing off? Now watch this. No creep, no nothing. I will do the little finger test just to prove it, but to be fair, it is so light. There's a little bit of slop, it's not too bad. It is so light that it feels like a blade of grass could break that trigger. Ready? So little finger test, even the corner of little finger test. You can't do it much lighter than that. So corner, and then finally, break. That is crisp. That is genuinely 10 out of 10 on that. I'm a huge fan. Another thing I'm not a massive fan of though, see it falls back down again. The power adjusting wheel. Now I don't know if these have been fiddled with so you can't adjust them with the stock on for some reason because of our power restrictions. I mean, with Crowl you can, with Reximex you can, and I'm sure there's plenty others where you can. But with this, Jesus. Oh, there we go, wait. Oh, it will move. It's just so awkward. And it's genuinely, if you can see that, denting my fingers to use it. So, yes, I take back what I say. You can use the power adjuster with the stock attached, but it's not a fun experience, I'll put it that way. It should have been smaller so you can just grip it and just twist it like a MPO2, like we've already may have mentioned, MPO2, your Kraus, such like that. Not a fan of that at all, to be honest. But it's well spec'd, I will say that, but at the same time, does it handle well? No. No, not at all. But anyways, let's see if it can redeem some points a bit later on. We'll put some targets up and see what it can do. For now, excuse me, excuse me again. Well, for now, what we'll do, we'll get the chronograph out, put a few shots through and see how she does. We're not doing the full 500 shots. We'll put a few through it to get an idea, and then we'll call it a day at that. I have no doubt this thing will go on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shots. So yeah, we'll be reasonable with it, I'll put it that way. But we'll whack the chrono out now and see what she can do. Don't like it. Well, that was interesting. We actually got proven slightly wrong. What it was, when we first shot this gun, we was using Air Arms Diablo Fields when we had this a couple of months ago, when I first laid my hands on it, and the magazine absolutely chewed up the first pellet. So when you shot it, it usually went about an inch to the left, but then the rest would be pretty much the same hole. Well, that's pretty much what's happened here. Not quite to the same extent though. So you can see here, even when we're using or hand loading the pellet, as you can see on the right hand side here, you still get one shot high, but the rest easily, I don't have a 5p piece with me sadly, but easily fit under a 20p piece. Now on the left we have a similar thing, but this is with the mag, and with the mag, all of it, even with the flyer, sits under a 20p piece. So it's not too bad at all. With the bottom group, that's 6 shots through there, will easily be under a 5p piece as well. So at 27 yards, not bad. Not bad, to be fair. Probably not quite the best group we've ever had on here, but then to be fair, I don't have the biggest pellet selection with me today in its defense. Right then, let's push it back to 45 yards and let's see what we can do all the way over yonder. So, we need to wrap up this rapid fire review. What do we think of the FX Gladiator? Meh, is basically how I feel about the Gladiator, the best way of wording it. If you're into this sort of gun, which I was hoping I would be, because you'll know I gravitate towards a longer gun. Some of the bullpups I've reviewed, I've said it on camera, the ones I stock, they don't really suit me, to be honest. The Aquila was nice, that was different. Some of the others I've tested, like the P15, you could see I was a fan, but I wasn't a fan at the same time. I wanted to like this because it's a big gun. It's perfectly sized, I would have thought, for me. But it just kind of wasn't in the end. And it's mainly, that's the culprit right there. And I'm willing to bet that was what caused some of our accuracy issues as well over here. Possibly even the cause of the flyer. Maybe my eye alignment was all over the place. I was basically wrestling the thing. It was like a freaking wrestling a weasel or a ferret or something to try and get that crosshair nice and clear. And as we come up here, you can see 45 yards. Not really. Like we said though, we did have a lot of wind. In fact, you can see it now at the moment. It's sort of blowing that piece of plastic around, although just as I've said it, it's calmed down, hasn't it, to make me a liar. Hopefully you might be able to hear it through the camera. We have got some gusts coming through now, which definitely probably affected the accuracy, but sadly we don't have any more time to get this gun reviewed. I just can't really bond with it. I'm not really gelling. The magazine's fiddly to load, and you've got to, it's like some of the SMK mags. First pellet's got to go arse first into the mag, which is, I mean, people complain about the SMK mags, so it's only fair that I complain about this. In general, it's just not quite there. Maybe the little Verminator might be nicer to shoot, who knows, the smaller version of this. But the Gladiator, I think, is just a missed opportunity. With some tinkering and tweaking, as FX do like to usually encourage with their guns, I'm sure there's a fantastic gun waiting to come out of this. But for £1,200 out of the box, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it, to be fair. I was hoping, like we might have said earlier, I was wanted it to wow me, and it just hasn't. But that's a bit of a sad note, isn't it, to end on? I've had the first ever gun that I've just not really bonded with, not really my bit of kit. Although saying that, the Narika Deadeye we reviewed was very much the same, and the P15. And I think there might have been a couple of spring guns as well that I weren't the hugest fan of. Anyways, we're getting off track now. There's been a couple that I haven't liked, but I think this is possibly my least favourite of all of them at this moment in time. But no, thanks ever so much for watching. Don't let this put you off a Gladiator. Definitely play with one yourself, see what you think of it. I'm not a fan, to be brutally honest, but there's plenty out there, I'm sure, that are. So have a little play with one if you're thinking about it. I'm sure you'll fall in love with it, and it will be 50 times better than this, because it might actually fit you, whereas me and we'll say a lot of other people, it does not. But thanks ever so much for watching, and we will catch you next time.